Thank you. Hey, can I call you Joe? Okay, good. Thanks.
All right, can I call you Joe? That was the start of the vice president debate in 2008 featuring Sarah Palin. Big reason why it was the most watched VP debate in American history. About 70 million people tuned in to watch that one. Now, keep in mind, the record holder for all presidential debates was just last week with Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, better than 84 million. But as VP debates go, we haven't come close to that record of Joe Biden and Sarah Palin. But you never know. You never know what could happen. There's so much interest in this race, it could be lifted up a little bit. But I understand that you're competing with, I don't know how the playoffs go, but it's a play-in? Play-in? No? Anyway, it's the Orioles. Thanks a lot for helping me, guys. It's the Orioles and the Toronto Blue Jays, and they're playing a game to establish who's going to be a wild card team, right? And then they play, oh, for God's sake, that's just on opposite this, all right? Keep up with me. But that's what they're expecting. There will be no third-party candidate here, just as there was no third-party candidate for the presidential debate. And that hurts them trying to get that exposure, because it can certainly lift it if one or the other is up on the stage. Jim Gray knows the feeling. He was a 2012 Libertarian vice presidential nominee. Bill Weld is that nominee this go-round. But again, he will not get an opportunity to be on the stage. Jim, that hurts, doesn't it, when you don't get a chance to be up there, no matter the numbers? They're big numbers for a debate, right?
Of course, Neil. You know, it's a question of viability, that people will donate money to candidacies unless they feel you have a chance of winning. And if you're not in the debates, as Governor Gary Johnson says, the Super Bowl of politics, you're just not seen as viable and you don't get a voice. It's a real tragedy, and it's a fraud on the American voters from our standpoint. Not only ours, but the League of Women Voters that was frozen out of this process, left with the comment of the Presidential Debates Commission completely controlled by Republicans and Democrats, saying that we will not perpetuate this fraud on the American voters and the hoodwinking of America, precisely going on still to this day.
All right, so they say that you would have been invited to the party, that is third-party candidates, if you achieve 50% or better in the polls. No one is close to that in the outside the two parties, and that's their explanation. You say what?
Well, it's arbitrary and it's rigged. They know full well that we're not even carried in most polls, so how can you poll at 15% if you're not in the poll? Or we're given as an afterthought.
That's a very good point.
It just doesn't work. The criterion for the League of Women Voters was any political party that's on enough ballots in enough states technically to win the presidency is a serious campaign and should be heard. And they were frozen out, of course, by the Presidential Debates Commission, which they call themselves a bipartisan group, which, of course, they are. Not nonpartisan, not multipartisan. But, Neil, you know this. It's a question of power. It's a question of money. It's a question of control. Why should we, as Democrats and Republicans, share the stage with somebody that might take votes away from us? In fact, we will take votes away from them. That's why Governor Bill Weld will not be on. Absolutely.
But are you surprised that did Gary Johnson hurt himself, or the inroads he was making in the polls with the famous Aleppo remarks, and then later on saying that he couldn't name a world leader who he liked or whatever? We all do this sort of stuff, but Neil, that it might have hurt his momentum. Just that's what I'm talking about, momentum.
And the answer is yes. You know, in politics, as you know, reality is irrelevant. It's just people's perception of reality that counts. But, I mean, give him a break. You know, he's the one on the firing line. What is Aleppo, really? You know, it came out of nowhere. Well, is that like a new leopard? Is that somebody with leprosy? And that's kind of going through his mind. And it's just between you and me, isn't it, Neil? I can confess to you that maybe Governor Gary Johnson is not always the best candidate, certainly not the best politician, but he would always be the best president. He showed that in fire in New Mexico, re-elected by a very large majority as a Republican governor in a Democratic state. Bill Weld, as a Republican candidate and governor in a Democratic state, was re-elected by a larger margin of victory than any governor in the history of Massachusetts. They're real candidates, and they should have that stage. They won't, because the Republicans control this rigged system. You know it. We know it, but unfortunately the voters don't. They don't know they're being defrauded tonight by not having Governor Bill Weld on the stage when they have this vice presidential debate. It's really an atrocity.
Jim Gray, always speaking your mind. I appreciate that, sir. Thank you very, very much.
I'm not Rodney Dangerfield, though. Let's get that straight.
Well, close. You have a sense of humor. All right, Jim, thank you very, very much. I appreciate that.